the Mirror's Kevin Maguire, by the Mail's Andrew Pearce, and a comeback from the Guardian's Owen Jones. Good morning to you, Owen.
Good morning. I've got my special jumper on just for you, Piers.
What does it say? We can't see it. What does it say?
No, it's just...
Oh, very nice.
Just for you.
What's special about Piers and that jumper, Owen?
It's just I wanted to look my best. It's my comeback, you know, and this was...
I don't think I've ever seen you look quite as sharp in the mornings, so I appreciate the effort you've made. I want to start with you, Owen, actually, because I want to play... Watching Boris Johnson yesterday, it seemed to me you've got a guy whose every natural instinct is libertarian, freedom, let people do what they want. And yet he knows this virus is coming back. He doesn't know how bad it's going to be. In his heart, he knows he got it wrong the first time. And he's got all the Tories now beginning to shout at him to not bring in any more restrictions. So you've got a guy, I think, trapped in an awful mindset. But what really got my gullet was when he said that he'd been successful in the first phase. Take a listen.
I know that we can succeed because we have succeeded before. When the sickness took hold in this country in March, we pulled together in a spirit of national sacrifice and community. We followed the guidance to the letter. We stayed at home, protected the NHS, and saved thousands of lives.
I mean, the sheer brass neck, Owen Jones, of that statement, that Boris Johnson boasting about his success earlier this year when we had 65,000 excess deaths, the worst death toll in the whole of Europe, one of the worst in the world, and the economic mayhem that came with it, one of the worst, again, in the world. The brass neck of the man to portray this as a success that saved thousands of lives.
Spot on, spot on. I mean, that point about excess deaths, I'm glad you've made that point. You've both done a genuinely excellent job holding this government to account. That's not sucking up. It's a matter of life or death when journalists truly hold the powerful to account in this pandemic. And that point about excess deaths, you know, we were told by Boris Johnson at the beginning of the crisis that's the most reliable statistic. It means, and I think we really need to hammer this home, 1 in every 1,000 of our fellow citizens died in a very short space of time. And the whole point about lockdown, we went into lockdown much later relatively than other countries. And the whole point was that's, you know, put the economy first. And that doesn't even work because if you lock down later, you get a worse outbreak. And that means you get a longer lockdown and you get a worse economic hit, which is why we're the worst hit economically as well, the double whammy in the industrialized world. And the key facts they can't get away with when they try and say, hey, guys, this was a global pandemic. Sure, we make mistakes. How could we have known what was going to happen? They'd locked down too late. We didn't have enough PPE. We had constant disastrous conflicting messaging. We had those vulnerable patients, do you remember, discharged from hospitals without a test into care homes, and that seeded a sector with really vulnerable people in it. They drove people back to work and to schools. And do you remember a month ago, the front of the Telegraph, if you don't go back to work, you face the sack. And now they've had to U-turn after menacing British workers with losing their jobs if they're not driven back to workplaces, which, according to the Trade Union Congress, nearly half don't have social distancing, eat out to spread the virus. And of course, most catastrophically of all at the moment, a test and trace system, which they handed out to these private contractors, which have virtually collapsed. And all I'd say on this, and this is a really important point, is I think there was an attempt to push the blame onto the public, which I fear has actually cut through with a lot of people.
Kevin, that's an interesting point. It's a point I made last night, because I really balked at this tone of Boris Johnson's, where he seemed to be shifting all the blame and responsibility onto a population that, by and large, stuck to lockdown. I mean, none of us have ever seen anything as draconian as that, and most people, 99.9% of people, stuck to it, but has failed itself on, as Owen says, care homes, on PPE, on testing, on schools, on mixed messaging. How is it our fault? How is it a few breaches that has led to this rise in infections? Surely it's because the strategy at the beginning, which either should have been we've got to live alongside it Swedish style, or should have been we're going to eliminate it New Zealand style, didn't work.